Do you ever ask yourself, am I playing too small? Have I left it too late to start afresh? Will I come to the end of my life and feel that I somehow let myself down? This is your invitation to hear from some amazing people who have asked themselves those very same questions and chose to wake the F up, to get off the hamster wheel of mediocrity and seize the life that was calling them. Be inspired and be challenged to discover who you have the potential to become and the contribution you're here to make. And now, here to guide you on the most important quest of your life is your host, Janet Hogan.
My next guest is about as straight up, unfluffy, and down to earth as they get. In fact, he sounds a lot like how he describes his typical client, Chuck in the truck. What's so surprising then is that for a long time, he felt like an imposter in his role as managing director of his business, My Roofing SEO. No time more so than when he had to jump on a sales call and suddenly become the self-assured face of the company. Now, I'm sure many of you relate to this feeling of being a bit of a fraud, of saying to yourself, who am I to think I can pull this off? Well, if that's you, you're going to learn a lot from my next guest, who is here to relate how he's gone from imposter to poster boy for really nailing your niche. It gives me great joy to welcome Adam Sinkus, the guru of smart marketing strategies for small to medium-sized businesses in the trade and home services industry. Adam, welcome to Wake the F Up.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I really enjoyed our initial conversation. I thought, you're someone I think who could really give some valuable information to someone who might be, sitting behind a desk in corporate US going, can I really make that leap from where I am to consultant? Or equally, the small business owner, and I know I've sat in that seat many times, who's going, why is my marketing not working? What is it that I'm not really getting? So I'd love it if we could, address those issues for people listening.
Yeah.
I think that, one of the things that startups really struggle with is they want to be all things to all people. Can you tell us, Adam, why that's not such a great idea?
It's interesting, right? It seems like marketing is a product that every business, even every person essentially can use, right? But at the end of the day, if I try and talk to everybody, I'm going to end up talking to nobody because my message doesn't speak to specific problems that each person is having. It's one of the reasons why we actually niched down and broke out the My Roofing SEO section of our business because we started to realize that, we were seeing these roofing restoration companies, HVAC companies, and these people are like super, super tactile. Like they just want the information, give it to me straight and how it is. Whereas we were also working with like nonprofits and retail and e-commerce and some SaaS companies, and they like the flashy show, the spreads, the PowerPoint presentations and the fluff and the love. And so it's two very, very different types of messaging. But if we try and talk to our home services clients with all that fluff and love, they're just like, you know what? Nope. I'm going to go find somebody else because they're just going to tell me what I need. And I'm going to go yes or no. Yeah. So it's, you have to understand what messaging works for the target audience that you're going for. And even though we can market to anybody, I can do marketing for anybody. I know who I'm talking to when I put my messaging out there. It doesn't mean we just work in home services, in construction and trades. It just means that that's who we're talking to when we put our messaging out.
So thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like you tried a few different avenues before you zeroed in on that market. Is that correct?
Yeah. We tried to niche down in some different spaces and we've been successful in those other spaces. But, what we realized is we also had a lot of people in this space as well that we were already working with. So it just made sense for us to move the brand into a space where we could work in that space and message directly to those people while not impacting our other clients that we're working with, right? So that's part of why, strategically why we looked at, do we split this brand off from our other brand, which is Elevare, which still operates in that nonprofit, e-com, retail, and SaaS space.
That's interesting. I know, often when we're thinking about, we might have hit a ceiling in our, current job, or be in a business which feels like it's, the wheels are spinning a little bit, and there can be a lot of fear in that area. And I've noticed with myself, if I'm coming from fear, I want to be all things to all people, which is really a scarcity mindset, isn't it?
It is.
And if I come from an abundance mindset, I then have the courage to zero in. But that, on a specific audience, it's a case of, going for less really does deliver more. But how do I know, which audience to go for? I'm thinking of, I've spoken to a few people, for instance, who've worked in the financial world. And so they've left one of the big, organizations, and they might say, look, I just want to make my clients wealthy. But, wealth is a huge category. Where do they go from there? How do they actually, what's the process of nailing your niche? What advice would you give them, Adam?
So it is a process, right? So the first thing I always look at is, who am I currently serving, right? So do I have current clients that I'm already serving in a space? And I start to look at them under the microscope, right? So I look at everything from how much money do they make, to what kind of house do they live in, to do they have a wife and kids, or, do they have, a sports car collection, or, are they, living in an apartment in, a little shoebox in New York City, just trying to make ends meet, right? Because all of that starts to tell me what problems they have. Once I understand who they are, I can start to address their problems, right? Because somebody that has an abundance of money doesn't have a problem of trying to make more money. They have a problem of trying to manage the money that they have so that it keeps growing in a scale that allows them to live the lifestyle. Versus if I'm a struggling college student, right? My problem is I need an abundance of money to pay my bills and go out and party and do all the social things that I want to do, while still maintaining that I have to go to college every day, right? So, so you have to understand who your clients are so you can start to understand what their problems are. I always start with the first niche I'm going to go after is the clients that I'm already servicing. Why? Because I've already effectively done something to attract that audience. So, just gonna start there. It's the low hanging fruit. From there, then I start to look at what other audiences exist that parallel that audience, right? So, if we're talking about the, wealthy mid-sized business owner that, has a nice house, a wife and kids, got they've got a boat or an extra car, sports car or something like that, right? Now I'm going to start to look at, well, who else fits in that mid-sized business owner space? What do they care about? And so now I can start to expand that niche a little bit, and I can go, okay, so I need to talk to people that make $150,000 a year or more, and they live typically in this type of an area. And this is this is their demographic of wife and kids, family, right? And so now I can take the same messaging that I was using for that group that I'm already serving, and now I can start to apply it, right? And what you'll find is, as you find these additional groups, you'll have to tweak your message a little bit here and there to make it count for them. But all in all, you'll see a lot of parallels. It's like for us, we service home service and trades, right? Well, we started with roofing and restoration companies. But what we found is that window guys, electricians, HVAC guys and gals, they all care and approach things in a very similar manner, right? So does an HVAC guy go knock on your door like a roofer does? No. But are they still very tactical in how they approach marketing via mailers and some very traditional marketing methods? Yes, they are. Right. And so, so we know how to work within the confines of the marketing that they're working in to add this digital space that is typically a little more unfamiliar for them.
Yeah. So it sounds like you niched right down and then decided to pull back a little bit to broaden the market from having gone very, very focused. Is that right?
Yes. And I always encourage people to do that, right? Start narrower than you think. Believe me, there's a broader market in that narrow market than you realize, right? There's like 40,000 roofing companies in the United States.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. Yeah. When you look at the numbers, you go, yeah, I can find my, 1% of that market is all I need.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't even need 1%. If I had 400 clients a year, for websites, like I'd have to hire quite a good team to get all of that done, just on 400 new clients a year,
Yeah.
So
you spoke to the issue of understanding the problem, and I totally get that. In fact, I was reading a line the other day saying that the number one motivating factor to get someone to change their behavior is pain. And so speaking to the pain of that problem, how important do you feel it is, Adam, for you or the business owner that we're talking to here to have personally experienced that pain to be able to really relate to the client?
I don't think you need to personally experience it, right? I've never been a roofer. I've never worked in the trades or construction industry. But what you need to understand is you need to understand the industry and the problem, right? And this is done through proper research, asking questions, being engaged in that marketplace, right? So, I spend a lot of time talking to roofers, talking to tradespeople, talking to people I know that are realtors that talk to all these people, right? And I ask the questions like, what are their problems? What are their pain points? How are they getting clients? What do they complain about those clients, right? And all of that helps me understand what their problems truly are. You have to define a problem that is narrow enough that it speaks to your target group, but broad enough that it's not just speaking to one person in your target group.
So what would be an example of a problem that comes up that you go, aha, yeah, that feels like something I could zero in on?
So for instance, with roofers, right, we talk a lot about, how do you maximize your marketing dollars so that you can get the biggest return, right? Because marketing dollars doesn't just consist of a website and traditional, mailers and things like that, but it's also door knockers that are setting appointments and running around neighborhoods, trying to get people to, to set a sales appointment. There's other costs involved in that. And so it's, one of the problems that we address with our clients is, let's talk about your overall marketing strategy first. And then we're going to talk about where we fit into that strategy. And we're going to solve the problem of how do you continue to get leads when your door knockers go home for the end of the day and your website is still running.
Mm-hmm. So right? Is that's their issue? Is it that they're really in that physical space that's very literal, isn't it? Knocking on doors. And they, so does that speak to a problem also, Adam, of being a little bit overwhelmed by the complexity of the digital world?
Yes, exactly. Right. So, one of the things I see so often especially in the trades industry, right, is we see marketers that they position themselves of fire all your door knockers, fire all your salespeople, and just go digital, right? And I'm like, well, that doesn't work. It doesn't work in business, right? So it's about addressing the problem that maybe they don't even know they have, but doing it in a way that speaks to them to go, you know what, I want to get you leads while your door knockers are asleep. So when they wake up in the morning, they have a pile of leads to go start with.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So what I'm hearing is that you're coming from their space, which is a very physical, hands-on space. They're in trades. That's what they do. They work with their hands, and their marketing reflects that, feet on the ground. And you step back from that and say, you could be missing an opportunity here. Let's tackle this beast called the digital world, which I can make, easy for you to understand. Does that kind of sound like the approach that you're doing?
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Right. I think 90% of the problems that people see in business is just purely from a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to, business owners are experts in what they do, right? People that own a roofing company are expert roofers. They're not typically expert business people. Not to say that they can't get good at that. Right. But they typically start a company because I'm an expert at this, and I saw an opportunity where I can make more money working for myself than somebody else. Right. And so you have to help them understand and help them get out of their own way to realize that they're limiting their self by not bringing in expertise to solve the problems that they maybe don't know that they even have. Right. And that sounds kind of convoluted. But at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time convincing clients why they should spend on marketing, why they should spend on this service or that service, why they should hire a bookkeeper, all those things that all those positions or roles that you might hire into a small business. Those people spend time helping you understand why it's easier for them just to hire you for X amount of hours per month than it is for them to struggle through it for 10 hours a month when they could be, managing another job or, driving more revenue, selling another thing, so that's always the approach with it is how do we get in and help them use their time to the best of their ability, and leverage that.
Yeah, you mentioned there having the need to get them out of their own way, and that's probably a nice segue into because we all self-sabotage, and that's my area of expertise. How do we stop ourselves from self-sabotaging? Because that's the tragedy, the way I see it, that we have all these people with the best intentions wanting to make their personal dent in the world, and then so often they don't, not for external reasons, although they might feel like external reasons because of something that's going on inside. So I'd love to speak to you, Adam, about how you dealt with what you identified as your big, if you like, internal issue, which was this feeling of imposter syndrome. Can you speak to us about that? Because it's incredibly common. I mean, if you do a little bit of research on imposter syndrome, apparently 70% of people say that they feel like that they feel like a bit of a fraud in their position. And even some of the most accomplished people out there, actors like Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks have said, I often stand in front of the camera and go, who am I even doing this? So can you talk to us about that? How did that affect you in your business?
Yeah, I despise sales. So I'm gonna start with a story, and then I'll dive into how it's affected me. Right. So I despise sales. So when I first, said, what, I'm in this, and I need more revenue coming in, and I don't have a salesperson right now, so I am the salesperson. I'd never really done a whole lot in sales prior to that, and so I started with the first cold call, and I remember getting on the phone and just being in total panic mode. I felt like I sounded like a blubbering idiot that had no idea what I was doing with marketing. And I ended up feeling like I didn't even talk intelligibly on the call enough to get it to even warrant the second call to really go through the sales process and actually close the deal. And I paused in the middle of the call, and I remember taking a breath and going, oh my gosh, I just need to talk. I know what I'm doing. I just need to talk. And from that moment, I could feel my tone change. I could feel my confidence level change. And I pushed out the rest of the sales call. I got the second call. I did not close that sale, and that is totally okay. But the reality is that I was so worried about what this person was going to think that I've never talked to. And if I didn't close the deal, I'm never probably going to talk to again. That I was worried that they were going to go tell my mother and my friends and my cousins, and, this guy's an idiot. And I don't know why you even keep him around, but the reality is none of that was actually going to happen. And as soon as I realized that in my mind, I could feel the whole change in my mood and my emotion in that moment. And so the problem is that I had always talked to myself about, I hate sales. I'm no good at sales. Right. And I still don't like to cold call. I don't like the process of cold calling because I hate interrupting people's days. But at the end of the day, I also understand the necessity of it. And so, for me, it was all about stepping back and going, well, there's going to be two options that they're going to give me. It's either going to be yes or no. And if I get a yes, great, I have an opportunity. If I get a no, well, guess what? I hang up the phone, I dial the next number, and we keep it moving, right? And I can take some time at a later point and reflect on that and go, is there something I could have done differently that maybe would have made that presentation go better or smoother to get the yes? And that's always important. But at the end of the day, you sometimes just, you gotta pull your pants up and say, I'm gonna do this, and just, jump in and do it. And that's really what's got me over the hump. And now, now I get on the phone and, my confidence level is totally different because I realize that at the end of the day, it's either yes or no. And if I get a no, I either didn't help them understand or they truly don't need my services right now.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really good advice, to almost see yourself as a witness to the process, reduce it down to the basic, it's either a yes or a no, and not get too emotionally embroiled in it, not take it personally. What about one of the things I find helpful too, Adam, is to go, well, at the end of the day, I'm delivering something of real value that's really going to give them something way beyond, their financial or time investment. How important do you use that strategy? Is that something that you do as well? Because I sense in talking to you, you really are about delivering results for your clients. You really do care about, getting them an outcome. You're not just, you don't just talk about it and then walk away, so.
Yeah. I truly believe that everything that we offer to the world, whether it be paid, whether it be something that we're giving away for free, advice, passion, love, friendship, you need to give more than you ever expect from anybody. And as soon as you do that unconditionally, the world unlocks. And so I started down a journey with this of, how do I just go and give so much value to people that they can't say no to me? Right. And part of that has led me to say, well, if I'm giving them so much value that they can't say no, am I giving away too much of the farm? Right. But what I've realized is I can step back and I can give value to the price point that they want or that they can afford. And it comes down to, I meet my customers where they're at, instead of trying to pack my customers inside of my box of my products and put them in this space. Right. So if they're not a $15,000 client, I'm not going to try to sell them a $15,000 website.
Sure.
But if I can do a $1,500 website for them, sure, it's not as profitable for me. Sure, it doesn't make as much revenue, but they're going to remember that. And when they're ready for that $15,000 website, who's the first call that they make?
Exactly. Yeah, it's really, I think it's a great philosophy to have. And and it's about striking a balance. I was on a sales call with someone last night, and at the end of it, she said, I've just got everything I need from the sales call, so she kind of created her own transformation on the spot. But then I think, well, that's great that she did that. And then I go, okay, but have I not served her in possibly she thinks she's got everything that she needs, but I know she probably doesn't, so it's a dance, isn't it? Just really knowing what is the right amount to give, and then to stop, but always coming from a position of what's in their best interest.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah. It's interesting because I've been down that path too, where I've given so much value on the call and they're like, oh, I can go do this, and then they come back to you in a month or 6 months or whatever the time frame is. And they're like, look what I did. Right. And you're going, oh, you should have worked with me. You really should have worked with me. But if you become their cheerleader in that moment, when they're ready to work with you, they'll come back. And the other thing I've learned in that moment is, if I fulfilled all of their needs on the sales call or the pre-qualification call, then I'm going to vehemently ask them if there's somebody else that they know that's having the same issues that they are, that I can help solve their problem with.
Yeah.
Right.
That is such great advice. Yeah. But I think you're hitting an important, let's call it a metaphysical law, the law of exchange, where it's very easy for us in the giving space to give away something and not receive anything in return. And there's an imbalance there, isn't there? And you do have to, as a business owner, particularly if you really do want the best thing for your clients, and I think that's the only way to survive in business, is to be coming from that authentic place. But to be mindful of this law, because it was a really interesting law that I was studying, and it basically says, if you give too much away for free, what you're doing is also giving to that person the burden of guilt. They don't understand it. It's a subconscious thing, but they feel kind of indebted to you, and they don't like that. And that can actually breed resentment. So that might be typically a coach, for instance, or someone in your role, marketing, who gives away lots and lots of information, almost to the point where they don't need you. And so, we do need to give them the opportunity to give back too, even if they're not buying. So as you say, to basically recommend you to someone else. Or sometimes what I say, and I think that's great, and I actually have that line on my board. Yeah, do you know somebody else who would benefit from our conversation today? Because I remember you saying that to me in our pre-show chat. So I've got that in big red letters. And the other thing too is, if you have really genuinely given them something of value, ask for a recommendation on LinkedIn, for instance, if that's a platform you use. And I've started doing that, and their faces light up because they actually want to give back, even if for some reason they don't want to, proceed with that particular product or service. And it feels to me like we're closing a loop at that point. It's a fair exchange. I think that's very important, because we, as business owners, entrepreneurs, energetically, we don't want to give away. We don't want to energetically, if you like, deplete ourselves. It's really important that what goes around comes around too, from that point of view. Adam, you completed the Magic Triangle process, which was all about isolating the 3 core needs, the most important things that would make the biggest difference to your life right now. I'd love to take you through those results. So just to explain to anyone who's listening who might be not familiar with this process, basically, we're isolating the 3 most important things, and we're working with some very simple geometry here. A triangle, which is about as simple as it gets. I love triangles because they're immutable. They're rigid. You can't bend them out of shape. And so what it looks like is, at the top of the triangle, there's the number 1 core need, and then the secondary and the tertiary ones are at the base, the foundation of the triangle. So, Adam, in your case, you've got authenticity up the top. So that's your number 1 need slash value, if you like, and at the base, flexibility and wonder. So we'll work through the two. Firstly, just to find out from you about flexibility and wonder, we'll address those first, and then we'll look at authenticity. So could you share with me, firstly, flexibility? That's an interesting need. Tell me about that. Why did that come up for you, and why is it so important for you?
But, I think we get wrapped up in this premonition that everything has to be this like hard-coded system process, even at home, right? Saturday is chore day. We start chores right after breakfast, like everything is like, it gets so rigid in life when you have to follow these systematic processes all the time. And we spend a lot of time in business and systems, because that is a critical piece of success. But at the end of the day, flexibility allows us to wander off the path a little bit and get into spaces where we can be more creative and where we can, flex the different parts of our emotions that, and go into, conversations and things that are truly unique to a moment. And so flexibility in that respect is very important to me, because I don't like to be stuck in a box.
Yeah, I hear that, that feeling of boxed in. And I guess that speaks to solutions in the marketing sense that might be too cookie cutter. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, you're not saying don't have structural systems. You have to have those structures and systems, but don't let them play God. So have them in place, but that in a way gives you the freedom there then to be creative and to think intuitively and to come up with out of the box solutions. Is that right?
Exactly. 100%. Right. Like I look at it from like customer interactions too, right? I can't control what a customer is going to say, do, or want. So I need to, so for me, like it's incredibly important, even though I have my system of how I develop a website, I need to be 100% flexible to what my customers' needs are in that moment through that system.
Yeah. So yeah, staying open to other possibilities and being curious. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes total sense. Now, wonder, tell us about that. What does wonder mean to you? And again, why is that so important?
So wonder it's one of those things that I have a lifelong pursuit of knowledge, right? So, I do have ADD or ADHD, whatever you want to call it. I was diagnosed way before ADHD was the coined term, but, it's one of those things that's kept me. I attribute it to part of why I'm so curious in life, because I'm always chasing the next shiny thing. Because I get bored really, really quickly if things get too static in a moment. Right. And so when I have conversations with people, like I'm already at the end of the conversation, ready to start the next topic, and they're like 2 sentences in. And, so wonder to me is all about how can I, keep that thirst of knowledge and growth, to excite myself every day to get up to want to do the things that I do.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if some of these labels that we get handed to us aren't coming from a system that's just not satisfying your insatiable desire to know more.
Maybe. I mean, I can't pay attention to things for the life of me. I have incredible systems in place to keep me focused and moving down a path.
Yeah.
As a result of it.
Yeah, I just noticed with a lot of creative people, that just seems to be how they are. That they're wired, like my husband's like that, and they're wired to always be exploring new avenues. And sometimes I'll say, can you just stick to the thread of the conversation? We were talking about something else just before, but he's off on another topic. And it's interesting. It's good to be aware of it, but it can well be the sign of a very inquiring mind. That's just gets bored quickly, which makes total sense. So now let's talk to the next one. The if you like, the cherry on the cake. what is also, in a sense, your North Star, the thing that's most important to you. I'd love to speak to that, authenticity. And authenticity can be one of those words like freedom that's been commoditized to the point where it starts to lose its meaning. You know, everyone has to be authentic these days. But what does that really mean for you to be authentic?
You know, so authenticity and being authentic isn't, it has nothing to do with a label, right? It has nothing to do with who who your business is. It has nothing to do with what you post on social media, because to be honest, social media is as ingenuine as I think most people get, because we put out the best version of ourselves forward, right? Authenticity is about opening yourself up to the vulnerability of those around you and being okay with the fact that they may not agree with you, they may not like you, they may not appreciate you, they may not appreciate your thoughts or your opinions, but being comfortable enough to say those regardless of what they think. And so to me, you know, we live in this world where people throw around authenticity as a buzzword. But at the same token, you know, I look at like my LinkedIn inbox. I probably have 10 or 15 sales pitches, cold, hard sales pitches in there from people that I have never, ever talked to, never ever messaged. I have no idea who they are, what they're about, or why I should even care. And to me, like, just all that noise of people just, you know, wanting to take up your space is so critical, that you have to pause and go, you know what, I'm going to be real with you, and I don't like your message and I don't want to talk to you. You know, and so authenticity is just being not afraid to be who you are in every situation, not just those scripted moments.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Adam. And also, so do you actually, is that how you message someone back who does just approach you out of the blue like that, unsolicited?
I'm a little more tactful with it, because that's what's kind of socially acceptable. But the message is definitely that. Like, I'm not nice about it. Like, I'm very, very direct about it in those spaces. And I will, I've, regardless of how good a product is, I've refused to do business with people that, you know, live in that space.
Yeah. How do you feel when you just allow yourself to be direct and truthful like that? What does that feel like?
It's freeing. You know, it's truly allows me to be who I am, right? You know, I am a straight shooter, no BS, like, and if I have to dance around the truth, it's frustrating to me. If I have to dance around, you know, how I might make somebody feel because I told them how I feel and think, that's very frustrating to me. So, you know, I want people to understand and accept that, you know, like, I might be direct with you, but it's not because I don't like you or because I'm mad at you or upset with you. It's because that's who I am, and that's who I'm authentically going to be every time.
Yeah. All right. So this is interesting. How the triangle works, it's uncanny, but it just seems to work like this every time, is that your highest vision of yourself, if you like, and your life and showing up in your life is living a life that really does pay tribute to authenticity. You know, that's really what you're about. That's you, that's your brand, if you like. And the way you achieve that, how you allow yourself to become authentic, is really inscribed at the base of the triangle through flexibility and wonder. So the way you've talked about this is by having the security, if you like, of a solid base, of having those structures and systems in place, allowing yourself the flexibility to be creative, to come up with out-of-the-box solutions. That, if you like, increases your appetite for curiosity. That feeds the wonder gene, if you like. Knowing that you have the freedom to use your intuition and come up with creative solutions, then that fuels your innate curiosity, which you always have had. That sense of wonder, which is, you know, a beautiful childlike quality. You know, as children, we have this sense of wonder, and we need to recapture that. So flexibility is an absolute must for you. And therefore giving you, enhancing this sense of wonder. And it's from this position, it's really from your creative self, actually, that you can be truly authentic, because in that space, you have the courage to say it as it is. So if we're going to simplify it right down to your personal mission statement, through flexibility and wonder, I achieve authenticity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It truly does.
Yeah. So what I do with this triangle is I have mine up on a wall, just to remind myself to stay on that path. Particularly the initial need actually is flexibility. So to keep that your focus right now, to make sure that it sounds like a little bit of a, not a balancing act. It sounds like you just have to make sure you've got the structures in place that you need along the way, and that will give you the freedom to be flexible, to then break those structures. But if you don't have the structures, that leads to chaos, which is the opposite environment for creativity. So that safety of structure is an absolute must. But having created that and gone to the trouble of creating it, you've given yourself permission now to be flexible, and you can apply that to your clients. So that's really what your inner self needs. And what's interesting, everything that we see in the outside world, let's face it, is a reflection of our inner self. We might think all our problems are external, but they're really just mirrors of what's going on inside. So what's powerful about this for you, Adam, is that if you really do follow this triangle, faithfully, it's how you will ultimately show up in the world on an ongoing basis. And you can even speak to that in marketing terms. So let's look at that. So in other words, when you follow this and you satisfy these needs, so they become values. And the need is just out there at the moment. You just have to bring it into yourself and it becomes a value. It's what you stand for. And that you then start to communicate to others. They get that about you. So authenticity at the top of the triangle is not just what you want for yourself, but it's also who you become. It's like your why. Like, you wouldn't feel good about yourself if you didn't feel that you could be that straight shooter, that person who says it like it is, right? You wouldn't want to get out of bed if you felt that you had to compromise that, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, you've spoken a couple of times about being boxed in, and I see that's at the back of authenticity, that fear of being boxed in. You don't want to be boxed in. You want to be able to say it as it is. So that's really, that's your modus operandi. That's what you stand for. That's your highest value, the thing most dear to you, and you don't want to compromise that. And that's what you offer your clients. And it's interesting that it sounds like, because that's so high on your radar, that's who you're attracting into your life. People the same, the same straight talkers. You don't want fluffy people who are going to bullshit you and waste your time, essentially. So that's really your why. What you bring to the table is wonder. So when you're talking to a client, it's really inviting them. This is how I interpret that from your position. Mm-hmm. You're inviting them to entertain the possibilities of what they could achieve through their marketing, to be curious, to go, what if we could do it beyond just, pounding the pavement? What if there was this whole other world out there for you? And I'm going to bring you into this world and share with you what's possible. And you know what? As scary as it looks right now, you're going to actually become so familiar with this and so at home with this. You're going to go, oh my goodness, to think that there was all this room for expansion that I was never tapping into because I was too scared to go there. And you're starting to allow them to be curious about something that up till this point has been, oh no, it's too hard. I don't want to know about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's really your what. And then how you do this is essentially by you being flexible. Also, you are flexible in terms of dealing with them. So it's through your own flexibility that you can meet them where they're at. Because you have such a dislike of being boxed in, you don't want to pass that on to your clients. So your how really is to meet them where they're at, within reason, of course. You can't compromise yourself. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I've never thought about it in that way. So it's very eye-opening to approach it in that modality.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. It really speaks to what I struggled with when people would say, what do you want? Or what are your values? And I'd be kind of plucking things out of the air, and they weren't authentic because they didn't come from me. And what's interesting about this is that essentially a need speaks to something that we've lacked. And that's why we feel so strongly about it, because it was something that we lacked or that we buried or suppressed that was always there within us. And when we suppress something that is within us, it's okay if we never had it. That's another story. We don't miss it. But if it's something that was within us all along, and then for whatever reason, someone's put us in a box and we feel that we can't get out of that box, there's a lot of pain around that because it's stopping us being who we really are. And that's why that's so dear to you. That's a separate conversation, Adam, to look at what sits behind the need. But this is really saying, this is your map going forward. This will serve you best because this is what you feel most deeply about.
Oh, I really appreciate that. That's, again, very, very, very enlightening. It's very eye-opening, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, it's really just putting yourself into black and white so that you can actually see. We are actually taking this nebulous thing called the self and going, if we were to put it on paper in writing, this is what it looks like. Which might not be perfect, but it's better than just facing a fog, which is how most of us get through life, not at all clear on our path forward. So what I'd like to do is just finish up this conversation with a message from you. And I'm thinking about me, right? It's sitting in that business owner space. I wasn't really in the trades, although I did get very involved in real estate and renovated a lot of properties, 117 when I actually counted it all up. And I would have loved to have met someone like you who could have solved a lot of my marketing problems. So what would you be saying to the business owner who's looking at the complexity of the digital space and feeling a little bit all at sea about it and just wanting to know what's the next step that I can take? What would your advice be to that person?
So my advice is always starts out with this, right? Is first of all, you need to understand, who am I trying to talk to, right? And as soon as you know who you're trying to talk to, then it's about figuring out where they're at and what messaging are they expecting from me, right? It's not what's important to me, it's what's important to my customer. Because at the end of the day, I can build a website that is stunning, absolutely stunning, has all the bells and whistles on it. And, somebody would look at that and go, oh my gosh, this is crazy awesome. But if the message that's there doesn't speak to the audience that it's intended for, they will never buy from it. Mm-hmm. So you need to step back and go, what is my audience? Who is my audience? What do they care about? And where can I find them? And in this day and age, right, you got to think about social media and their mobile device. How do I reach them in those two places? Because that is where most people are at, Mm-hmm. And so we approach that in the digital marketing space by looking at, is your website mobile ready? Is it mobile first as well, which is a new thing that people are taking into account as well. So that's really what it comes down to. That's my biggest advice, is figure out who your customers are, find out where they're at and meet them there, and create a message that talks directly to them.
Adam, I love that. And I think that's such an important reminder for the business owner, because we can get caught up in a bit of our own hubris. Here's my shingle, here I am, it's all about me. And then you go, no, it's not actually. So thank you for that very salient reminder. All the best with your business. And thank you so much for being a guest on Wake the F Up.
Thank you.
You have just listened to another enlightening episode of Wake the F Up with Janet Hogan. To find out more about the breakthrough, guided way to get off the hamster wheel and seize a life of freedom and fulfillment, visit janethogan.com/podcast for access to the show notes and to learn more about Janet's breakthrough work. Just remember, finding your true path isn't potluck, it's a process. Until next time.